Hey, everybody. I am Kevin Ioli. Welcome to Yahoo Sports. And my guest now is the president of the UFC, Dana White. The 29th season, that's dating us. The 29th season of The Ultimate Fighter begins on June 1st on ESPN Plus. Dana White is here to talk to me about it. Dana, I guess you could ask this a lot, but how does this season of The Ultimate Fighter compare to seasons past?
Well, I think if you're a fan of The Ultimate Fighter, you know what to expect. I think you're going to love this season. The most important thing to me is the fights are great. When the fights are great, everything else comes together. And I think it's going to be a great finale too.
You had indicated, at least for a while, that you were thinking of not doing The Ultimate Fighter anymore. Ultimately, what ended up getting you to move
When
forward?
did I say that?
You said that when the ESPN deal was coming out. You had said, you weren't sure what the future of The Ultimate Fighter would be, that type of thing.
I've been pretty adamant about bringing it back. No matter where it was going to end up, I didn't know if ESPN was going to end up taking The Ultimate Fighter, but I was going to find a way for The Ultimate Fighter to come back. And, obviously with the success that we've had with ESPN and ESPN Plus, it ended up being a no-brainer that that's where it would go.
I want to ask you this. I mean, I was a big fan of The Ultimate Fighter in the early days, but then I think the last couple seasons kind of wore me down, where I would fast forward and watch nothing but the fight, right? Because, all the baloney that would go on in the house and all the stuff that was on there, kind of got wearisome. Did it ever bother you? And do you think that you needed to do some creative retooling to it so all the nonsense that seemed to happen in the house would not necessarily be front and center?
No, I mean, it is what it is. One of the things that I loved about the show, and one of the things that I think has made it so successful, is from day one. I mean, we laid out, an outline of what the show would be. And once we got on set and started filming, it all just happened, and these are all things that happen. These guys get in the house and no girls, no family, no contact with the outside world. You get a little nutty, and then you get some drinking involved, and it gets even nuttier. But it's all real. I mean, this is what really happens. This is, you want to talk about a reality show? This one's as real as it gets. So we don't mess with it. It is what it is.
Being on ESPN Plus, obviously ESPN Plus is getting a great deal of subscriber help, a lot by Disney Plus. Certainly Disney Plus has just got an overwhelming amount of subscribers. But, are you happy with it being exclusively streaming as opposed to being on television and not having that television element?
Yeah. I mean, listen, we've been killing it on ESPN Plus. Like you said, they have massive numbers. These guys have bigger numbers than some of the networks do that are on cable TV. So, and I like the fact that once it airs, you can go in and watch it whenever you want to.
Right.
So, and it doesn't mean that it won't replay on TV either. We do these things sometimes halfway through the season where they'll run, if it's up to episode 5, they'll run the first 5 episodes on ESPN, ESPN2, or ABC, who knows? So, it definitely doesn't mean it won't be on TV.
Right. Okay. You said it's going to be a good season. You can't wait till the finale. You in the past have, been out talking about, some of the stars that are coming out. And, I remember your famous comment, it turned out to be Philip Nova, that, the next Anderson Silva. Do you see anybody in the field that's like that caught your eye that you say, hey, I think this guy can be a star in the UFC?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that anybody stands out where I would talk about like Philip or like Uriah Hall or even Rose,
right,
when she was on the season. But there are definitely some good kids on this thing. I don't know if you look at. I always like pointing out Kelvin Gastelum. He was picked dead last. The coaches evaluated him. He was picked last. He won the season, even over, who I thought at the time, had the potential to become a world champion, Uriah Hall. He beat him in the finale. And today, I mean, I don't know what year does anybody know what year he was in?
Which year?
Kelvin Gastelum.
That was TUF 17 with Chael Sonnen, so 2002.
TUF 17. In 2000 what?
Oh, no, 2005 plus 17 season, so 8 years. So like
I
2013.
think it was 2014, I think.
Okay, so it's like 8 years ago, right?
Yeah,
The guy's still ranked in the top 10 in the UFC.
right.
It's crazy.
I've talked to you about this a lot, and I'm still a believer that you're doing a lot better with the Contender series and even looking for a fight than you are with TUF. It seems like you're bringing more UFC ready fighters into the company than you did with TUF. I mean, do you have any thought on the readiness of this year's fighters to get contracts and fight in the UFC?
I think if you look at, what we offer now, we have something for everybody. Next Saturday night may not be for you. You'll go online and you'll see people like, this card sucks. All right, well, you don't like that card. Well, I'll bet you like June 12th, right? You got
Right.
Adesanya versus Vittori, plus a lot of other great cards. We have fight nights. We have pay-per-views. We have the Ultimate Fighter. We have the Contender series. We have Looking for a Fight. We got a pretty big menu with a lot of different, all those shows are different. They're all completely different,
Right.
and appealing in their own ways. Some people will like everything. Some people will like a couple things, and some people will like one. So, I mean, I would say we have a big enough menu now that we have, there's something for everybody.
Yeah, I guess what I was getting at was not necessarily, whether you like the show or not. Like TUF has kind of passed me by, but the quality of the athletes is, I guess, what I'm getting to. It seems like, more you have a lot more success getting higher level athletes and stars coming out of the Contender series. Now, I know you've had champions on TUF and Hall of Famers on TUF, so I'm not trying to dog that entity. I'm just saying it seems like the Contender series is more consistently producing, relevant high level fighters for you. Would you not?
But it's the same pool of athletes that we're pulling from. So, I mean, these guys that are coming into the Ultimate Fighter could have gone straight on the Contender series. You know what I mean? The difference is with TUF, you get a deeper dive into who are these people? What are their, what's their personality like? It's for people who like reality TV and like to see more and know more.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
You don't know a guy, you might, for you, a guy, you'll watch the Contender series and, you get Sean O'Malley, who goes out there with these spectacular knockouts, got a great personality and all this other stuff. But you'd actually get to know more about him if he was on the Ultimate Fighter.
Yeah. Kevin Holland is being another one. Kevin Holland would have driven everybody crazy in the house. You couldn't have never had him in there.
Yeah, that would have been interesting.
Let's segue. And I guess the big news today that came out, the former Golden Boy CEO, Richard Schaefer, a really solid guy. I've known Richard for many years, Jon Jones announced that he had.
Hey, you know what I would have known, though? If I put Kevin Holland in the Ultimate Fighter, I'd have seen him under different types of pressure.
Yeah.
And I would have known what he could deal with and what he couldn't deal with. Right. Coming off the Ultimate Fighter.
Well, you know what? Give him credit. He's up there in San Jose training with DC and AKA, so trying to learn wrestling. So I think he's showing he can deal with stuff. Some people would say he was humiliated. You know what? I say, hey, you know what? He's a tremendous fighter who has one weakness, and he's working on it. I give him a lot of credit.
I agree. But let me tell you what, the pressure cooker that is the Ultimate Fighter, it takes a different type of mentality to come off that show than it does the Contender series.
Sure. I get that. Going back into what I was saying, Richard Schaefer was hired as Jon Jones's advisor. I talked to Richard today, I said, what are you going to get into MMA promoting? And his first line was, no, Dana is the best. So I'm not getting into that. But so he is hopeful that he can negotiate a deal with you for a fight with Francis Ngannou. To me, I still think that's the biggest fight you can make. And that's the fight people really want to see. What do you make of Jon hiring Richard Schaefer? And is that a positive in your eyes?
Yeah, I like Richard Schaefer. I respect the guy, known him for a long time. And, he's a real guy. And he's a guy that gets deals done. So we will see. He said
to me today, I thought you would appreciate this. Not that it's really significant, but I'll just add it to the conversation because people get a kick out of it. He said, I've known Dana for a while and I have a nice relationship with him. He says, we like the same people in boxing. We hate the same people in boxing. And I didn't ask him who he was talking about, but I have a feeling I know.
Yeah, no, that is true. We and I are very aligned on who we like and don't like.
So anyways, we'll skip on to the next one. But so I guess that begs the question: if he's out there pitching, working you on a Jones Ngannou fight, and he's telling me he thinks it can be $1.5 million or more selling pay-per-view fight. Is the Lewis fight done? Is Derek Lewis signed? Is that happening, or is there still time that Jon Jones can end up fighting Ngannou in the next championship fight?
Yeah, I know Derek Lewis is getting that fight.
So that's a done deal.
Yeah. My people were just telling me that Jon Jones came out yesterday and said he's not fighting until next year.
He might not fight until next year. Yeah, I don't think he said definitely not, but he said he might not. Yeah, 2022. He's patient. He wants to be ready to fight at heavyweight. So
okay.
If I assume though, if you offer him the fight with Francis Ngannou, he might take that fight though.
Listen, man, this is the way I look at Jon Jones. If he shows up, that's awesome. If he doesn't show up, he's got a great run and go out on top, and it's not a bad thing either.
I remember you flew, where was it? Venezuela, an island to make, was it Couture? No, Brock Lesnar and Fedor, right?
Right.
So you went to that. Great. This seems like at least as big a fight as that, right? I mean, you don't seem to have that same sense of urgency to get Jones in against Francis, and I don't quite understand it. I mean, I get Derek Lewis has won fights and Derek has looked good, but to me, you're talking Jones and Francis is just the greatest fighter of all time against the greatest puncher of all time.
Yeah, but I've been doing the Jon Jones thing for like 10 years. I know how this thing works. It's Jon Jones is a different animal. Listen, if I came to a deal with Brock Lesnar and Fedor at the time, both these guys, wanted to fight each other. They wanted to go out and compete and whatever. That's not Jon. Jon's just on, Jon's one of those guys. I mean, Jon's one of those guys that could have had blown this sport open. I mean, he could have had a Nike deal where he had shoes with Nike for the next, 25, 30 years after he retired and stuff like that. And, I don't know. I get excited when I know Jon's really coming in and he's going to fight. So I've sort of set myself up for, if he doesn't, he doesn't. Right. Jon Jones go out on top, and he retires tomorrow. If he called tomorrow and said, I retire, I wouldn't be shocked. I wouldn't be devastated. I'd say good for him. Right. And if Jon Jones calls tomorrow and says, I want to fight tomorrow, I want Stipe, awesome. Let's make it. Let's get it going.
Sure. Okay. Let's get into a couple other things. Nate Diaz's return, and I thought it was interesting, and I'm glad you did it. But I just want to ask you why you did it. You already had 2 title fights on that card. You made the Diaz-Leon Edwards fight at UFC 263. That is June 12th in Glendale, and I believe that's your 3rd consecutive sellout. So congrats on that. But you made that a 5-rounder. Just curious, it's a non-title fight that's not the main event. I'm happy you did it, but why did you do it?
They wanted to fight 5 rounds.
Period. Nothing else.
It was easy. Yeah.
So even though, I'm sure you have a lot of fighters that would want to do 5 rounds, that this specific one, you went with it.
That's what they were scheduled for on their fight before too.
Okay. How do you see that? What do you see that fight impacting that card in terms of like pay-per-view sales? Because, Diaz obviously has proven, he can move the needle, so to speak. And he's become one of your biggest stars, maybe surprisingly to you. I don't know. But I mean, he seems like one of the guys that, is one of your top stars. He's 3rd on the card. What impact does that have on the pay-per-view? Does it make the card blow up on pay-per-view wise? Or do you think him being down, maybe doesn't help it as much as if he was in the headliner?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the card and you think about every Saturday night, I compete with something, whether you got to take your wife out to dinner, you got to, there's a new movie coming out, whatever it is, there's always something that we compete with on Saturday. And when you look at this card, Adesanya versus Vettori, you got,
You would call it 2, though.
Sorry.
Who's that?
Technical difficulties here. But Figueiredo versus Moreno, which, was in the running for fight of the year last year. If Weili Zhang versus Joanna hadn't happened, they would have won. And then you add Edwards and Diaz. I mean, the card is ridiculous. It's a great card. It's stacked from top to bottom. And I'm sure it should have an impact on pay-per-view.
Yeah, no, that I love that card. I think that's going to be a fun card. What's been your take so far as you're going into your third live event? You're 2 weeks away essentially from your third event with fans again. Do you realize how much you missed them? I mean, has it become, we talked about, hey, it's cool to hear what the fighters say. It's cool to hear the kicks to the midsection and everything. But when you had that first fight in Jacksonville, and, I got chills as I heard that crowd go crazy for that women's fight that night. It's a whole different animal with people in the building.
It's awesome. It's so fun. And Jacksonville was incredible. Houston was incredible. And I'm looking forward to Arizona. It's fun to have the fans back. It's been as I'm going in on Thursday and Friday for the weigh-ins, even the weigh-ins in Houston, we're awesome. So yeah, it's good to be back. July 10th in Vegas is going to be nuts.
Yeah, I think that'll be fun. You had your matchmaking meeting after UFC 262, and I'm curious, did you discuss what the Oliveira's future is and where he slots in after what I thought was an incredible performance against Michael Chandler?
Yeah, well, we're obviously going to keep our eyes on the McGregor fight and figure out what we do after that. And I saw talk yesterday saying Gaethje and Michael Chandler was a possibility. Do you have any update on that one? No, but obviously that's a fun fight to make. I would love to make that fight. So
I think that would be two fighters with Dana White privilege, right?
That's right. That's a good point. Good point.
Was that the line of the year so far by Tony Ferguson?
Yeah, that was pretty funny. Yeah.
Dana, what do you do? In the past, you were more proactive, talking about these guys like Cowboy, Cerrone, Tony Ferguson. I don't know that Tony really belongs in that same thing, but, Cowboy, Cerrone, Jacare just, his contract ended, but he lost 5 in a row. Some of these fighters, notably you encouraged Chuck Liddell to retire. Now, you don't necessarily have that same, vehemency about it. I know you at one point said you thought it might be time for Cowboy, and then, he's still around. Like, how do you view that now? And, where do you look at Tony and Cowboy in specific fitting into your long-range plans?
Yeah, I'm not saying that it's not time for Cowboy, but Cowboy asked for one more. And the one thing that you have to realize here in the UFC too is when you see a guy and he's lost 5 in a row, whether it's Cowboy, it's Anderson Silva, it's this guy, so that, look at who they fought.
Right.
They're all the best in the world. Jacare. I mean, these guys are fighting the absolute best in the world. So, to say you lose 5 in a row here, fighting all the best. My thing is, how are you losing those 5 in a row? Did you get viciously knocked out 2 or 3 times in a row and things like that I start looking at, like, time to have this conversation, which is never fun. I mean, when you look at a guy like Cowboy, he's been with us forever. He stepped up, in times of need, always willing to do anything for us. So it was like Anderson Silva too. I mean, it's almost like, I don't want to say there's this negativity with it when we finally got to when we got to say, hey, it's time to pull the plug. But, we showed Anderson Silva the respect that he deserved, kept him here, and, he was making very, very big money for all of these fights. And, Jacare and guys like that, we show them the respect they deserve. We keep them around and let them keep competing and making that money.
A guy that, you showed respect to, and even in a bad time just recently, was Diego Sanchez. And I want to get your take on the recent turn of events. Obviously Diego got cut after, the issue with, Joshua Fabia, his trainer, and the whole thing about his medicals. Now Joshua Fabia has come out and started to rip Diego. I don't know if you saw that, but Fabia is now ripping Diego Sanchez and talking about Diego has drug problems and he's cheap. And, his educational level is poor. And really badly, I guess. So 2 questions. One, first, your thoughts on that whole scenario. And then number 2, does Fabian now being out change your idea about Diego at all? And will you entertain him, say him versus Cowboy again, given that was a fight you wanted to make?
I haven't really paid attention to any of that. I don't care what that guy says. This is one of those things. I just was telling the media the other day, every time you guys ask me about Triller guys, it's like, come on, you want a reaction from me. That's what you're looking for. I feel the same way about this kid. All of you guys know this kid's batshit nuts and whatever. If Diego needs me, just like the last however many years, Diego's never been that needy guy. I did see where he came out and said, I've been trying to talk to Dana for Diego Sanchez can pick up the phone and call me, any of those tough kids. You know what I mean? I had a falling out a few years ago with Josh Koscheck. If Josh Koscheck picked up the phone and called me, I would talk to Josh Koscheck. Mm-hmm. If any of those kids needed me, all they got to do is pick up the phone and call me. Diego Sanchez, this will always be his house. He will always be a part of the history of this company. And as long as I'm here, he'll always be respected for what he's done for the UFC and the Ultimate Fighter. So I don't really follow any of that. I don't really follow any of that shit. I don't really care what anybody says. When I tell you I don't give a fuck, I could not be more honest when I tell you I don't give a fuck. But I love Diego Sanchez. I always will. And if Diego needs me, all he's got to do is pick up the phone.
How I'm a little bit sensitive when people criticize me. You don't like it, but you don't mind it. Sometimes it bothers me, right? So I tweeted out or put out the other day that I was going to be talking to you, and somebody says, "Man, your interviews with Dana are boring. You got to step it up." And I'm like, so I came up with the perfect question for you. Since my interviews with Dana,
you got to ask me some Triller questions.
What do you think of Ariel Helwani? No, just I got to figure something out. But just to wrap up on Diego there, given that he's no longer with that guy, will you entertain that farewell fight for him now?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. Even when, we were doing his farewell fight, I didn't love it. I didn't love the fact that he's still fighting. But no matter what I do, if I let Diego go, he'll probably end up somewhere else. And you know what I mean? That's what I was thinking at the time. And I love the kid. So he wanted one more fight. I was going to give it to him. And then all hell broke loose. And here we are today.
Just two more things, if I could, Dana. One of the fights that was announced for July was Sean Brady versus Kevin Lee. Kevin Lee moving up to welterweight, and Kevin Lee, a known commodity. Struggled a little bit recently, but a very good fighter. But I wanted to hear you talk about Sean Brady, because to me, he is a guy I think can be that next level guy, right? I was very impressed by him, and I'm just curious your thoughts on him and his potential.
Yeah, no, absolute stud. And obviously that's a huge test for him. And yeah, that should be a very, very fun fight, man.
Yeah, no doubt. That'd be a good one. And then finally, I'm just kind of where are you targeting Francis and Derek at then? Since you said earlier in this interview that that's the next fight, do you have a kind of a tentative game plan where you want to put that?
Yeah, listen, we just had a great experience in Houston. I'll probably take that fight back to Houston.
So since Derek's from Houston, bring it back. What time frame is that? Fall fight, or would that still be in the summer?
Summer.
So maybe August type time frame. Awesome. All right, Dana. Well, good luck. The Ultimate Fighter debuts June 1st on ESPN Plus. Of course, UFC content all over the place, pretty much all the time nowadays. You don't get a day off if you work for the UFC. Dana,
well, now even Tuesdays. So every Tuesday on ESPN Plus.
Exactly. Thanks, Dana. Good luck, man.
All right, buddy. Have a great day.
Yeah, you too.